Andy, I have a conundrum for you. A question to posit that a brain like yours would probably excrete an intelligent answer to.
Don't use excrete like that. My brain doesn't defecate, it produces.
Alright. How can a non-physical being with no ability to affect the physical world resurrect a dead person without being able to affect the physical world?
Undead necromancy.
How does the same character cut open monsters, open doors, teach cooking lessons, use magic, cut wires, and exposit if it cannot affect the physical world?
Undead plot armor.
Alright. How does that very same character have an army of physical bodies to teach and lead, but you are the only one who can fight and cook and stuff?
Undead. Silent protagonist favoritism. Can we stop with backward Jeopardy from beyond the grave and get started?
Dungeon Munchies had me on name alone. I was immediately hooked back in 2019 when I met the demo for this game at PAX East. The combat was fine, the progression was okay, and hunting enemies was alright. There was a lot of room for improvement, specifically for the combat, which, unlike most platforming dungeon crawlers, had to be specifically aimed at enemies instead of covering a wide enough arc to where aim was less important than the hit itself. It's also what inspired me to check out the first chapters of Delicious in Dungeon or Dungeon Meshi. Evidently, they both have very similar plotlines about using enemies in dungeons to create dishes to feed yourself. They both took it in vastly different directions, though.
Dungeon Munchies begins immediately with you in your casket. Suddenly, you are awoken and given the freedom of movement. That was very fast. Usually there's some sort of preamble or opening cutscene to explain the world you're in. Nope, you are a zombie. Who you are, how did you die, where are you? Psh, not like any of that matters. A short tutorial where you definitely rip a tree's penis off later. That's a sentence I just said. And you are introduced to the plot of this game.
You are a zombie resurrected by a ghost chef named Simmer. Your job is to learn Simmer's magical cooking abilities because none of her current half-dead employees are able to, even though one appears right next to her and talks about another employee of hers. The first able to move and walk and speak, and the second able to blow up gas canisters. But no, you with your no voice, no free will, and quote, insatiable hunger are the best person for the job. I guess.
You see, within each enemy you defeat, there are magic parts that can be used for cooking magic dishes. The rest of the enemy could probably be eaten, but you're only interested in the magical parts, because those are the parts that give you abilities. You'll immediately cook a dish that gives you an extra jump as long as the dish sits in this area down here. It only holds so many dishes, so you can only have so many abilities active at one time, which means down the line, you may have to give up that extra jump for more HP, and even give up that extra HP for some more attack. It's an interesting system that kind of fights the reason you exist.
The first NPC you meet, this skeleton with a convenient note, describes your insatiable hunger, which implies you must eat and digest things to give your body energy to move. Then why do dishes sit inside of you when you eat them? Why do you not cook dishes for more than just combat and abilities? Why do none of the dishes offer permanent upgrades and instead have to be interchanged? It's a system that could have offered so much more than it did because it eventually boils down to making only the strongest things. You'll never strive to go back through dungeons to make anything else because the strongest stuff is the only stuff with advantages. It's a strange and limiting system.
Speaking of limiting, traversing this game is literally a series of one-way hallways. Also, each area has the exact amount of enemies you need to fight, with the exact amount of parts you need to craft the next most powerful weapon and ability. This game offers enough of everything so that going back through each area is absolutely pointless, almost as if the gameplay was only used as a bridge between story elements.
You eventually reach a point where you start to understand where the story's going. You are meant to make it to the surface of this dungeon to defeat the Protector of the Forest. Simmer and the Protector have a real grudge going on, and it only makes it more confusing after fighting the latter. From there, the story evolves into a confusion fest with very little to do with hunting enemy bits and satiating an insatiable hunger that has yet to ever really have an effect on you. You're meant to just travel place to place, fighting enemies and fixing issues ghost characters cannot, even though they've proven they have abilities that can affect the physical world several times.
Hey, what's with the combat? Why do I have to aim swords and stuff? Shouldn't these things just attack in a general arc, and it's my job to make sure the enemies are within that arc? Are enemies really that unpredictable that you need to aim your weapon instead of just using your weapon? That seems really odd. Aiming the guns you have, that makes sense, but when you're aiming swords and spears, it offers the option for attacking through doors and walls, which eliminates any difficulty in combat.
Dungeon Munchies is not a good game. I don't even think it's a game. I'm fairly certain this was meant to be something completely different, a motion comic or a game, but it did not handle being both well at all. It seems absolutely confused by its own concept. You never hunt for anything more than the most powerful items, your insatiable hunger never comes up, abilities are temporary, and every main character has about 5 unmoving JPEGs that interchange while they talk. This is the least interesting presentation for an interesting concept I've ever seen. I was truly expecting more from this game, but I can say without much argument that it evolved very little between the demo from PAX East 2019 and its release in 2021. Despite my excitement, the boring story, the uninteresting gameplay, and and the bullet hell bosses suck the fun from this installment and should keep onlookers at arm's length. This full-priced alpha build needs some serious touch-ups, and I really hope it gets them because this could be a fun concept to explore again when all fixes are presented.
Thank you for joining in for our review of Dungeon Munchies. Did you enjoy the game? Tell us what you thought of it in the comments. Be sure to follow us for more reviews and fun times. Alright, stay safe and don't let dead people resurrect you. Bye.